come up and share his story. We don't have our projector, so just pretend he's going to visually get you to see what would be here if it was. A little bit of a oops this morning when our projector went. So we're going to turn over to John, and then we'll do our official closing after. So John Maya.
Does this work? Are you hearing me?
A little
No?
bit louder.
I'll just hold it. Anyways, different hat. Usually we're throwing balls or things like that, so you just need to listen to me, I guess. But imagine yourself just sitting here listening to me, and then your next memory is waking up in a hospital. The first thing the medical professional asks you, what do we do if your heart stops? Not likely? Well, it happened to me twice. Nearly 4 years ago, I was taking some videos of two students. They were engaged in physically active games, and I was videoing them for my social media feeds. And next thing I knew, I'm waking up in a hospital, and medical people are going, what do we do if your heart stops? So I'm kind of going like, oh dear, I'm in trouble. So let me explain, or let me answer that question. It's got different answers for different reasons in different parts of my life. So in the next 15 minutes, just think about your own journey about choosing life, and also think about people in your life, like the individuals that shaped your life, and also think about your own journey, how you as an individual can shape other people's lives. So I don't recall much of my life as a young person. I was born in Nederland, and then we immigrated when I was 4 years old. If I would have had a picture here, I would have had me as a 4-year-old on a boat coming to Vancouver, Canada as a settler, in which what I later learned was part of Turtle Island. We immigrated to Canada as it was a land of opportunity and mountains and wilderness. My childhood days were enriched with games at a neighborhood park that bordered our home. During my elementary school days, I did poorly in my classes, but I was the first one at school, so I could be first up for the baseball games before school. I loved recess and lunch breaks, but I didn't much like the rest of the school day. I felt like a loser most of the day. A humiliating experience that still hurts me just a teeny little bit was one day when we painted some pictures, and I painted a picture of a person, and my classmates laughed at my painting, and I didn't figure out why, but it's because I painted the person green. But I didn't learn until then, I guess, or later, that I was colorblind. So that was one of the things that I was dealing with. The ridicule deepened my feeling of being a loser. I did graduate from grade 7, but only on the condition that in grade 9, I enrolled in the general program in high school. Physically active games gave my life purpose and joy, and if you asked me then, what do I do if my heart stopped? I would have said, I want to play, I want to live. Please revive my failing heart. When the time came in grade 8 for my parents to sign the papers for me choosing to enroll in the general program in grade 9, my immigrant parents, neither of whom went past grade 6, signed the papers. I still remember in the living room, my older sister sitting there, my parents were just about to go out, and she said, you guys are lousy parents. So my parents stopped, and she kind of gave them a lecture about I just need to get my button gear, and I shouldn't be going in the general program. So she finished her lecture, and I said, fine, I'll stay on the academic program. And I did. My dad took on several extra jobs to provide for our family. Those jobs often necessitated me as a young teenager to stand behind a table saw all day Saturday, stacking cedar planks with its ubiquitous dust. I'd cough up cedar dust for days. I recall never being fast enough for my dad as he pushed boards through a table saw. I got scolded or punished for not keeping up with him. I learned to work hard and efficiently, but during some of those Saturdays, if you would have asked me what to do if my heart stopped, I would have answered, just let me die. The senior high school guidance counselor helped me deal with my just let me die emotions, and once again, the power of one person, like my sister, changed my life for good. Sometime after my high school graduation, a breakup with a girlfriend brought me in a close relationship with Creator God. A recreation leader encouraged me and helped me to apply for a community college recreation program at Vancouver City College. I was accepted into that program and enjoyed 10 years of further academic studies, including Teachers College. Those studies all started, for me, with the encouragement of one person again. In 1992, I finished my PhD dissertation. It was on the Margaret Eaton School. A recent book noted that the school's notable teachers and many of its students had a far-reaching impact upon the structure and gender dynamics of Canadian physical education, sport, and recreation. The book just came out, I think in January or so, this book here. So not my book, Bruce Kidd, one of the main authors for that. As an example of the school's influence, every physical education director from the Canadian YWCAs in the 1930s were graduates of the Margaret Eaton School. PHE Canada had its founding meeting with MES faculty at MES in 1933, so that's where PHE Canada started. One person, Emma Scott Raff, began this school on her own. So again, one person made a huge difference, not only for that school, for physical education directors, and ultimately the development of PHE Canada. Furthermore, her great-grandson, Bob Young, paid to digitize the Margaret Eaton School archives and launch a women's leadership grant with PHE Canada, which she could apply for. Again, one person, Bob Young, making a big difference. When I taught high school for 8 years and university for 27 years, my focus was often on purposeful and inclusive play. My wife and I also received 4 children and 14 grandchildren, and as we share our lives with our children and grandchildren, we try to encourage them to choose life as well. I also coached university varsity volleyball. I coached men. Several of them didn't have a father figure in their lives. So I became a father figure for several of them and helped them to choose for life. Permit one example. One of these athletes, about 10 years after graduation, experienced the death of his mother. So I attended the wake. The athlete came to me, wrapped his arms around me, and wept. He said it was the first time he wept. He was finally in a place where he could safely let his emotions flow. And one more example, my wife and I once took in a young university student who suffered with an eating disorder and suicidal ideation. Each morning, we hoped she was still alive. My wife helped her get a job, connected her with a positive group of young people. She married one of those folks, has 5 children, and 25 years later is still choosing life. In 2003, and several years before that, I did a lot of road cycling. Riding 150 kilometers on a Saturday morning was pretty normal. I lived in Hamilton, I would just bike to Niagara Falls and back for the morning. But on June 30th, 2003, I had ridden only about 2 kilometers, and then I woke up on an x-ray table at a local hospital. I'm going like, what happened? I'm biking. But then I felt the pain in my body, and I'm going like, okay, something bad happened. What I learned later was there was a 70-year-old man had medicated his life's problems with alcohol. He had drunk 13 ounces of vodka the night before. He chose to drive his pickup truck that morning. His blood alcohol level was still nearly 3 times over the legal limit. And one person was going to hit something or someone that morning, and he hit me. Again, one person changing the life of another in a negative way this way. The implications of the collision for me were that I had a broken leg, double vision for a half year, lots of abrasions, and a dangling ear. It took me 2 months before I could walk somewhat unassisted. What turned out to be the most complicated, though, was a head injury, even though I wore a helmet, which saved me from more complicated injuries. I had written 6 editions of books before this time, mostly through human kinetics, but now I couldn't write. My memory didn't last past 2 paragraphs. I could write 2 paragraphs, but then I couldn't remember in the 3rd paragraph what I wrote in the first 2. So my memory was like crazy short. I also had headaches 24/7, and about 1 year following the collision, I sank into clinical depression. It was a place where darkness was my closest friend. And if you asked me then, what do we do if your heart stopped? I would have said, you know what, just leave me. I wasn't suicidal, but in my darkness, I preferred death to life. The constant headaches and the ability to not write led me to retire early in 2013. Probably 100 counseling sessions dealing with the depression and unpacking the trauma of my youth brought me closer to choosing life. One day, my daughter asked our family members if anybody wanted to run the 30-kilometer Around the Bay race in Hamilton in 2008. I said I'm in. I couldn't run before then, but I said, okay, $60 on the table. I'm from the Netherlands. Once I put the money on the table, we're in. So I began 4 months of incremental training, and I eventually ran this race in a slow 3 hours and 23 minutes. But I completed it. One person's encouragement, my daughter, helped me to move forward. This run renewed my zest for life, and I kept on running half marathons, full marathons, and once a 50-kilometer run. I loved the running. The running was a meditative time, and the left, right leg and arm movements in the outdoors renewed my spirit to a place where, once again, I would have answered the hard question affirmatively, I'm choosing life. Please revive me if you can. Since then, I've been able to write again, and Human Kinetics published 11 more editions of books I authored or co-authored, with one translated in Chinese, one in Spanish, and 3 into German. None into Nunavut, sorry. Each book was an opportunity to positively impact the lives of its readers. It's over 100,000 copies of these books impacts a lot of people to choose life. From 1996 to 2018, I served on the board of CIRA Ontario, who represented themselves really well here. I was privileged to be its president for the last 15 years by being on this board. I co-authored 12 of their great books. And CIRA Ontario's motto is promoting fun, active participation for all. This organization helps children choose life through the recesses I so valued as a child. In 2014, I ran another half marathon. When I approached the finish line, there was a bit of a log jam, and paramedics were working on somebody. Turns out it was a running friend of mine. I had seen him a few minutes, well, maybe 15 minutes earlier going this way. I was going that way. We said hi, but he died at the finish line. And then I just sort of lost my zest for running. He would not have wanted me to stop running, but I just kind of lost it. In 2017, I began doing conferences for Go for Sport across Canada. It's a company that has innovative and high-quality equipment and great service. It was my pleasure to continue to promote the choosing of life for students with these folks. And let me just... Somebody.
It's a giveaway. You get a ball. You get a ball.
Sorry. We'll get more equipment out later. Anyways, I prepared a website with over 900 games. I prepared Pinterest and YouTube accounts with over 900 videos or 700 videos. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I post to various social media platforms. All of this to encourage teachers to help students choose for life. This past November, I wanted to determine just how many people read these posts, and it was over 100,000 for the month of November. So I kind of thought, you know what, if each of those teachers influences 10 kids, that's just 1 million kids that we just helped to choose for life. In the summer of 2020, I decided I needed to begin to run again. I was desperately slow and ran only a 3-kilometer distance. I thought I was just out of shape, I just needed to keep on running. But about 1 month of these 3-kilometer slow runs, I better see the doctor. So she prescribed some blood tests. These tests indicated that I was losing blood. So she said, we need to do a colonoscopy and endoscopy to see where you're losing blood. Well, 3 days following these blood tests, and before I was to have the 2 scopes done, I was visiting 2 students playing some games, and once again, I found myself waking up in the hospital. I had oxygen flowing in my nose, IV needles on, and several medical people around me. One of them asked me, what do we do if your heart stops? And my knee-jerk response was, sorry, I'm choosing life, but if I've been dead for a while, just leave me. I'm okay with dying, but I'm choosing life. And that became my motto really throughout the next few years. Turns out the reason I collapsed was that my lungs were full of blood clots, caused by a fully cancerous left kidney. I collapsed because I couldn't breathe. A month following my collapse, my left kidney was surgically removed in a 6-hour surgery, which I gratefully received 6 units of blood. The pathology report indicated I have an aggressive stage 4 renal cell carcinoma. I began to prepare my funeral. I asked my oncologist about life expectancy, and he replied the median life expectancy is 4 years. That will be about 3 months from now. But then nothing happened. I should add that recently I was encouraged to not count down to 4 years, but count up. In other words, so far in my life, I've been gifted with 25,830 days and counting. I'm trying to not count down to the end of this talk, or the end of this work week, or my eventual retirement from Gopher and so on, but rather I want to consider how I can unpack the gift of today and add it to the rich gifts of yesterdays. May we always live each day as one more gift to unwrap well. 9 months after my surgery, the medical team radiated cancerous vertebrae for 5 days of treatments. But then I also had 5 golf ball-sized masses on my lungs, liver, and adrenal gland. They began me on immunotherapy treatments, and following 1 year of immunotherapy treatments, I couldn't tolerate the treatments anymore, but by then the masses had amazingly shrunk to the size of peas. So that's all that's left now. The motto throughout my cancer treatment has been, I'm choosing life. More time with my wife, my kids, my grandkids, and amazing teachers like yourselves. Our students are our most important guests, who are gifted into our classes. They ask us for careful attention, they stay for a while, and then they leave to follow their own way. I hope each one of us could be one person in the life of many children, encouraging them to choose life through sacred, fun, purposeful, physically active play. Through physical education classes and intramurals, we can gift students with powerful experiences as they get lost in the motivating experience of joyful activity, the excitement of competently mastering new skills, and feeling confident in life. Through our work, hopefully we can help students choose for healthy and active lifestyles. Hopefully we can help them choose life. Thank you.